One.
All right, hello friends and neighbors. Welcome back to the Low Brass U studio class. It's your favorite class about the brass where we do not allow any form of sass. So don't get sassy. I am your co-host, Connor, and with us today playing the wonderful, you might even call it the modern day tuba.
It's been called
Zach.
that.
There you have it.
Yeah, so welcome everybody. Got some Bordoni action right at the top. You may recognize that etude. It's number 4 in the bel canto studies book. I don't remember what number it is in the Rochu book. That's the trouble with all the Bordoni books. Is I was telling one of my students this week. It's like I literally have like 6 different copies of Bordoni related things, and it's like there are 2 or 3 different number conventions, and it's like it's so hard to remember the numbers. I know some people who are just like, oh yeah, Blazevich 384. I know that one. That's the one in D flat, and it modulates to E major, and it's just like, how do you remember those things? I can never remember those things.
No, absolutely not. I also haven't spent as much time in Blazevich as I probably should have.
Well, Blazevich is kind of weird on trombone because it's not necessarily like, I don't know, it's you come across a lot of Blazevich etudes, but you rarely play out of just like a Blazevich book for trombone, at least in my personal experience.
That's fair.
Like I do have the Blazevich clef studies book, which I have used and has merit and everything, but I feel like most of the Blazevich etudes that I played on trombone are like actually in the Voxman book, so it's not like a complete book of those.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, it is what it is. But yeah, Bordoni, Blazevich, it's like, what more do you need, right?
It's good stuff. I have a question.
What's your question?
Performance. First off, let's make this a compliment sandwich. Nice playing.
Thank you, Connor.
I have a question about, it looks like the rehearsal numbers are just in measures that are groups of 10. Is that how I'm seeing that?
Yes.
I think I saw measure 30. That's the measure where the trills are.
We should pull that up. Oh, it's ruined. It's not ruined, but it was a little bit different than intended, but it's fixed now.
Greg wants to know if you're winning.
Oh, we're definitely winning.
I don't know. Does anybody really win in the game of tuba?
That's a good question. That's a fair question.
Are there any winners?
There definitely are. No, I'm not going to go that route. So measure 30 and 31, I believe, are the measures that you are referencing.
Yes. And my question inside of that is the speed of the 16th notes after the trill. Are they like erase note 16th notes, or are they like actual notated 16th notes?
It is my understanding that these are actually notated 16th notes designed to be played in time, theoretically. I think is that a question of how I played it and how you thought that maybe it didn't say what it says on the page because I played it in a way that you disagree with?
I thought you played it musically with conviction and the artistry was there. I was just curious.
Yeah, I think, it's written as those are real 16th notes, not grace notes. I played it that way. I don't always play it that way. I don't think I'd played it that way today, which is assuming why you're asking. But yeah, I mean, I think that there's some leeway in, in exactly what's going on here. So
yeah, I mean, it's all kind of serving to ornament the downbeats in the next measures, succeeding measures. So yeah, I think the musical intent was there.
Yeah, that's a good one. I like that one. I like how it ends. Like how I think it's an interesting.
Yeah, it goes in enough places that I like and I'm excited enough to get back to the main theme when I'm finally at the bottom of the page. Like sometimes, and this is my problem. This is a me problem.
It might not be a you problem, but
I just I lose focus of like the original melody sometimes, or like they don't sell me on the first theme before they go and like change the key or go somewhere else. I'm just kind of like, I don't even need to see you again. Like, I already heard you.
Yeah.
I'm done. That's because I didn't play it good enough the first time to want to hear it the second time.
I think also part of it is how you play it the second time too. You know, I always ask that question to my students, saying that it's that you want to make sure that you're playing it in a way that is different, or at least intentional, whatever your intention may be.
Yeah.
Craig says I don't think this pops up on here. Hold on, let's go back to this screen. Craig says for region, I wouldn't make it a grace note just in case you get a strict judge. That's the situation that you're playing something in is a very important detail. I probably wouldn't play it that way for a region audition either. Fortunately, this is just for the few people on the internet who are watching. So I don't think I'm eligible to make All-State ever again. So, but if I am, maybe it's my big
Never
chance.
count yourself out.
Right. So yeah. Though I think at the end of the day, with Bordoni and with these sorts of lyrical things, we can have some sort of leeway. I don't think I played it so crazily like off the beaten path.
No, I thought it was great. Hi, DJ.
DJ Rice, who is, I believe, as of today, official. Is this correct, DJ, that you are officially the lead trombonist in the 1 o'clock lab band at the University of North Texas?
Snaps.
I believe that is correct. I believe that's what I saw on the face of books.
I saw that on Instagram, and if it made it all the way to my dusty old bones on Instagram, then it is probably solidified.
I would assume so.
Congratulations.
Yeah, it's very exciting. I'll try to make it out to see some performance.
Yeah, I'd like to as well.
I don't know when the first one is. I don't even know if the schedule is similar to what it used to be. It's like above my knowledge at this point.
That's awesome.
But DJ can help us.
Yes. Yeah. Plug the next gig for the 1 o'clock in all subsequent streams.
Yes. Because there's always another one.
There's always another one.
And then also, DJ was a recipient of a pretty solid award there too, weren't you?
The composition award?
Mm-hmm.
I saw that. So there you go. It's been a big month for DJ.
Yeah, it's very very exciting stuff, DJ. We'll have to get him to do some co-hosting or interviewing or something like that. September 8th on at the Syndicate. Let's see. What day is that? Is that a Wednesday? Is it still Wednesdays?
I have no idea. It's been way
September
too long.
8th is a Wednesday.
Fall concert with Ben Patterson? Are you joking? That's awesome.
Yeah, I didn't know that.
That is so cool. Wow.
Yeah, at some point, I meant to. I haven't told you this, Connor, and I can't say it yet because it's not official. But I'll just put a teaser out that Tarleton, the university that I'm teaching at, Tarleton State University, they're having a guest artist, I believe, next semester for the jazz department, and it's someone who's pretty exciting, but it's not official yet, so I can't. I can tell you after.
Tell me after this.
But I can't tell you.
Not on air.
Not on air. DJ, is this a Wednesday during the day or a Wednesday night performance? I guess those are Wednesday during the day. Is that correct? I'm out of the loop.
And for those of us who live on the incorrect coast, who don't live on the middle coast anymore, are any of these concerts live streamed? I'm sure Fall Concert will be. I'll definitely watch that. But I feel like in this new, post virtual learning age, maybe some accessibility of streamed concerts might be a little more readily available.
All it takes is a couple pencil condensers, and we can get the show in somebody's laptop, and we can at least get something going.
That's all I ask. Put your microphones in the air. Point them at DJ.
You actually just want a condenser mic just right in front of DJ, and we'll just get trombone 1 cam all night.
You joke, but I would literally start into a fund, a trust at UNT for the UNT like trombone section endowment of live stream. If I could just like toggle between all 5 trombone players on like my own interactive little screen and just watch them.
That's
like
definitely the future of live streaming, I feel like, is having like, sort of a director's cut where it's like, it's, a logical going from camera to camera, and then there's like, I want bass trombone 5. I want second oboe. That's all I want tonight, So Craig asks, so tell me, have you happened to have a deaf student by any chance? I'm trying to think. I think I've had a few students that have, I don't know the correct way to put it, but not as strong of hearing as you might expect from a musician. But I don't think I've had any students that truly, couldn't hear. What about you, Connor?
I've had a number of students with hearing impairments and students with like hearing disabilities and things like that. And usually what we do in that situation is you work in tandem with like a system of support that is either through the SPED team, or sometimes there's hearing specialists that work itinerantly through a school district, and they'll have a caseload that will either be the whole district or it's like a region or a school, and that's that person's job to talk to you and say, these are like the things that we need support on, and this is like their level of hearing or whatever sort of thing, and then you work with them as like the content specialist to say, okay, here's what we want this student to learn, or these are the benchmarks inside of music class that are like, this is like evidence of mastery, or this is like the proficiency of instrument ability that we want. And then it's kind of like this dialogue between you two that offers support. Usually the support is things that are similar to what you'd see in like a 504 plan, where it's like kind of modifications to classroom procedures, where you do a lot of not signing or anything like that, but you offer up like move-in based procedures inside of your classroom for, like even things as simple as like agreeing with a question or having something to say, number of questions that you want, and then anything that you're teaching verbally, you'll have some sort of visual aid to support that type of student. And interestingly enough, I'm in a brand new school district right now with someone who is brand new, who has taught for 8 years. They said they taught music and dance it was a school for students who were deaf and blind. And so I'm really interested. She's going to run some professional development for us in the district to learn more about supporting those students inside of a music context. And I'm really excited to hear what that ends up being. And I learned a really interesting term today because we were going through a lot of the hidden narrative theme of today for the stream is probably that Zach and I are super zonked because we've been doing trainings at our schools respectively.
Well, I think most of my training is already, most of that stuff's already done, but it's that like it's actually starting now. That's right. The trouble for me.
I see. That is another troublesome element. The school starts and the students show up, and you have to teach them.
Yes,
they always do this.
Right. They always, I've heard the joke that I want to say that my mom said this to me one time because she was an accountant for university for a number of years, and she's like, everything's great about working here except for the students. I think that's what she said, as having an accounting job there. So no, but that's not the case. But it is like, it goes from like all this planning stuff to just especially the first week is just so hard for college stuff. Of every scheduling thing is in flux, and every single schedule could possibly change. That's a really scary thing of like, you ask for all your students' schedules and you're like, hey, I want to do this lesson time. And so it's like, well, I can't do this lesson time. It's like, can you do this one? It's like, no. And it's just like, okay, we can do this one. And then someone's like, oh, I had to swap out of this section of this class into this section of this class. It just gets really complicated. I went through the trouble of deleting all of the last names off of my teaching schedule so I could actually show my teaching schedule and how like some of the complications of it, and just how this took me multiple days of getting all of this together, because especially in certain situations, like my UNT office is a shared office with other other teaching fellows, so I have to avoid another person's schedule, and then I also have to deal with, all of these other things. So here is my teaching schedule as it stands now, which is it's the highest number I've ever taught of students in one semester, no matter what you include of, college or middle school, high school. And then it's also the most hours as well, which is just like, it'll be daunting, but it's also, I'm also not really a full-time student anymore, which is nice.
Mm-hmm.
Let's see, DJ has a question. So let me find my mouse and get that on the screen. Do you ever write exercises / music for your kids, or do you let the Arbenz, Bordoni, etc. books take care of what your students need to work on? For me, I think I tend to I tend to teach them how I would work on it, and I probably don't write it down. I probably should. And that's actually something I started doing a little bit more through doing more virtual teaching, was that I always had, or not always, but a lot of times I had Sibelius open. So I had a notation software open, and especially when I was dealing with like middle school kids was probably the most common that I would do that with, is I would put an exercise on there, because that's something that usually I would draw and just write out, and it'd be really easy to do that way. But sometimes that helps, and then sometimes I'd export it or give them a PDF of it and deal with that. What about you, Connor?
It's definitely something that I like to do, and I've done a lot more like when I was more actively doing private teaching, and it's like really, really fun to design instruction or exercises that cater exactly to what you as the professional think is the need of the player. And that's like, it seems like a really, really quick fix, and often that's a way to like, especially like younger students, to get them like more engaged and like make it kind of fun, or make whatever you're trying to teach them, whether it be you want them to do more slurs, or their range is poo-poo and you need to make it better, and pick a song that they like that's kind of a carrot on a stick to kind of a little more intrinsically motivate them to pick up their horn and practice. That's a lot of fun. And if I had infinite time and resources to do that, I would probably do that every single time. The problem right now in my current position is that I can't do that with every single student that I run into. And so it becomes, for me, an issue of, is the juice worth the squeeze? And sometimes my time is better served casting a broader net with something that I know that will work. But I would say that, like, if I can, the more I can personalize and write exercises for students, I do it all the time. Because then they're seeing, it's going to be more effective because it's dealing with a singular issue that needs to move on and they're playing. And it also shows them that you're coming to the table and like personalizing their learning experience. And that's going to be like just a huge rapport building thing. And yeah, super awesome.
Yeah, I think, I also tend to do things that the student could do without having things written down also. Like you were talking about like the range building thing. That's a thing I do a lot with very specific excerpts, is have students play them in all 12 keys. And kind of like ascend up to it. Like the perfect example for tuba is Mahler 1, that tuba solo, which is essentially more or less a minor scale. And so that's one of my favorite ones, because it's the sort of thing where if you can't do that just like by ear, we've got some work to do with minor scales. And it's just a good kind of exercise that's usually pretty accessible. So that's one that I like to do that way. I think that like some of the super high ones for all brass, that are relatively slow, like Bolero might be another one that playing it in different keys is helpful. Same with Beadlow, that's another one. Mm-hmm. So you're getting asked, Connor, to drop a contact. So I don't know.
Oh yeah. So I probably won't drop her specific contact information, but I will go back and find the school or the institution that she was working for and see if I can get them in touch or drop that information. And then another thing that I can do that might be better, and it was something that I meant to touch on when I was talking about differentiation for students with hearing loss or students with hearing disabilities. There's this podcast by like the Fire Robin people. If you're hip to like general music education stuff, that should be a name, Fire Robin. There's a thing, it's called the Fire Robin Association for Music Education, and they've got a bunch of podcasts, and they did one with, she's a PhD candidate at University of Michigan. Her name is Rachel Grimsby, and her podcast episode is about this concept called Universal Design for Learning. And that's like one of those like big acronyms that you're probably hip to. It's kind of like a UBD or differentiated instruction. Essentially what it is like your ethos for teaching the student is to not give the student a million options and say, this is what's best for you out of the 10 teaching options I've created. You're supposed to create a learner that can look at an abstract goal and say, this is what I need for my support. Like kind of like more self-directed with like them knowing how to make that decision. And inside of that, they talk about students with disabilities and like equality versus equity. Equality being like everyone gets the same Bordoni. Equity being your learning target is meeting the needs of your disability. And using the word disability is intentional because it recognizes like the student beyond that. And the way that Rachel frames it is that it's not the student that is disabled, but it is rather, I think I've cut out. Have I cut out?
You were fine. It was just a little glitch.
Okay, sorry about that. Anyways, it's not the student that's disabled, it's more the environment that we're creating as the educator as negating their ability to meet the learning goal or do the task. And so it's the environment that is disabled as opposed to the student having the disability. So you can still, I think that the term is still appropriate and can be used for good stuff. So check that out. The podcast episode is called Universal Design for Learning with Rachel Grimsby.
You want to drop a link?
Yeah. I'm dropping a link.
Or you could read out the entire URL character by character if you'd rather.
Yeah. Absolutely. So there you go. That's super helpful.
I guess one thing that we definitely failed to mention, we just like pretended that this didn't happen. It's Thursday. This is a Thursday show.
Oh yeah, we didn't.
We didn't mention anything about how we didn't do it yesterday. Connor kind of alluded to it, of just saying that we were a little overworked maybe. And Wednesday, for both of us for different reasons, is just probably not going to work anymore. So when we're doing Thursday this week, but starting next week, Thursday won't work for me either. So we're actually going to go to Tuesday starting every week.
Tuba Tuesdays.
Tuba Tuesday, Trombone Tuesdays.
It's almost a smooth Tuba Tuesday, but I know it's not.
I think that is trademarked.
We dare not say that.
But yes, that's smooth Tuba Tuesday is.
We're just regular surfaced tubas. They're not smooth. Just
maybe crunchy, like the opposite, peanut butter type.
Yeah, crunchy. It's like that. There's the TikTok video. It says my pronouns are he because I'll never be him. The him in this case is the smooth tuba.
Yeah, I wonder if those are okay. I gotta be honest with you.
Yeah.
Are they okay? They feel kind of not okay.
I feel like that's okay.
Okay. I don't know. It feels like it's making a little bit of a mockery of pronoun choices, but maybe I'm going too far.
I'm not sure. Well, I need to educate myself further then.
No, I'm not saying you didn't create these. I'm just saying that that's definitely not a necessary discussion. I wonder if our audience even crisscrosses with some of those TikTok related things.
Right.
But Austin Martinez says hi.
Hello, Austin Martinez.
Austin Martinez, did you ever get that Canon C200? Actually, Austin will appreciate this. This is being filmed on a C100, Austin, if you're still watching. Or at least my portion is. And there's no autofocus, so I actually focus it. I should be this close, but I'm this close. And so I'm slightly out of focus. But that's okay. The struggle is real with no autofocus. One day Low Brass Youth Studio class will be so, one day Austin will be our full-time technical director, and, he'll be our crew. No, he doesn't have to do that, but it could, we could need it, so. But yes, one thing that I did want to bring up that I think is somewhat interesting is, this is my first semester teaching at Tarleton State, and one of my students, he did get the C200. I'm very jealous. I would like a C200, but I probably don't need a C200 to go live on YouTube. But C200, one might argue that's twice as good as a C100. I think it's logical. The numbers add up or multiply. I think actually, they crunch. That's a better way to put it. But anyway, at Tarleton, one of my students, mentioned to me about the school's contrabass trombone, and this was news to me that the school had a contrabass trombone, and I thought it might be interesting to talk a little bit about the model that they have. And I actually got to I got to see it, although it's not in playable condition today. It's getting sent out. The issue is a very small issue. It's just there's not a problem with the valve. There's a problem with the actual trigger for it, where it just became detached from the instrument. So it should be a really easy fix. But let's see. I should be able to click this. So they have this contrabass, which, if you are hip to contrabass, let's see if I can do a better full screen. I don't know if that made it better. Feels like that made it worse.
I have no idea.
So it's a little hard to tell. I guess this is our best image. But it's a double B flat contrabass trombone. So it's actually it's the same key or the same length as a B flat tuba, whereas a lot of modern contrabass trombones are often pitched in F, like the F tuba, so they're significantly smaller. So this instrument in total length before you use the slide or the valve is roughly 18 feet.
Wow. I'm in awe.
And the really fun thing about it is that it has this comical double slide.
It's doing its best.
It's doing its best. So it just is interesting because it seems like very prone to having some. It seems like it'd be easy to screw up that slide. But yes, it's pretty interesting, and I'm interested in both hearing it and probably doing a little testing of my own. Most of my experience on contras almost all my experience on contras have been on Tyne contras, pitched in F. And one that was modified to E flat. So I would say that's probably a contrabass in F, at least today, is kind of the standard of what instrument is usually being played. It's probably going to be a little bit more agile and nimble than this one. But what's interesting about the double B flat one, since it has a double slide, the slide positions are the same as a normal trombone, because the slide is just doubled.
I mean, that's just work. It's clever engineering, is what it is.
It's definitely interesting, and my favorite thing is that they actually have Miraphone makes a version in C. So that's just. I feel like that's just. They probably not made very many of the ones in C. They probably haven't made that many of the ones in B flat either, but the one in C just seems like some tuba players well, I play C2, but we got to do it in C. And it's all right, we can make it.
Sure,
chop 2 feet off.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's definitely an interesting instrument, and it should be some fun to hear what that instrument can sound like. But Craig says you could ask Trent Hamilton about how fragile that horn is. And if you're unfamiliar, Trent Hamilton is another YouTube brass personality, if you will, who had a trombone just like this one and dropped it. So.
Oh no.
I believe his video is titled something like "My Most Expensive Mistake," something along those lines. I'm sure it's not hard to find. But yes, I'm definitely interested in seeing what kind of ruckus those trombones can make. And I'm definitely interested because we're going to do some trombone choir stuff, and I'm interested to see if that's something we should use, should not use,
I think
should
you have a
feature.
moral obligation.
I think we do.
Yeah.
Somebody donated money for that, so we definitely have to use it. So I'm thinking maybe we'll do some. Isn't there like a? There's a part of the Carnival of Animals, the elephant part, I believe. There's like a contrabass feature that someone did of that.
Oh, really?
Maybe we'll have to do that.
I think you should.
But yeah, it'll be interesting. Or there's plenty of trombone choir things that have contra, like the Bruckner Etude, I believe, is officially written for contra, and so is I can't remember what that piece is. It was for the ITF choir competition or ensemble competition a few years ago.
The Bruckner Etude is written for contrabass trombone?
Like the lowest part is, I believe.
Oh, I didn't know that.
I'm pretty sure. At the end of the day, contrabass is a choice. It's never. I shouldn't say it's never. It's essentially never necessary, though. There's not really much that instrument can do that a regular bass trombone with 2 valves can't do. Practically speaking, it's a little bit. Yeah, Craig is saying that. He's saying that what I said does exist. I think that's what I was.
Nice.
Yeah, because I think he did a YouTube video of it, if I remember correctly. So DJ Rice asks, are you teaching jazz/classical bone alongside Paul Berczak, or are you primarily doing tuba? So as of right now, I teach brass methods, and I teach most of the trombone students and most of the euphonium students. So there are a few, but I don't teach any jazz classes. Paul does have a jazz class. So we're kind of splitting duties of the teaching the students, but I don't know that none of them are jazz majors specifically, but I'm sure, as we get going, someone will be more interested in jazz. But I think both of us are primarily just teaching trombone, more classically oriented trombone and euphonium.
Yeah. No jazz euphonium?
I don't think so. Maybe there's I don't think anyone mentioned in our first lessons. I don't think any of the euphonium students mentioned doing any jazz things. Could be wrong.
We shall see.
We need more jazz euphonium out there, though. It's an untapped market.
There are dozens of us.
Craig says lowest part of, I assume the Bruckner Etude is what he's talking about, can be played on bass, though. I've done it a dozen times. Any contrabass trombone part can be played on bass trombone. It'd have to be you'd have to write something specifically to have it not be playable on bass trombone. Like there's almost nothing, because once you put down the F valve, it's essentially a contrabass trombone, and you'd have all the same slide positions. Like it'd have to be some really like weird trickery of doing some complicated valve work or something that, but even then, it's just basically contrabass trombone, in my opinion, is a sound choice. Not unlike playing alto trombone. I think most tenor trombonists are pretty comfortable playing most things on alto. I'm not saying that there aren't some benefits to playing certain things on alto, but at least for me, I don't know that at the current stage the alto trombone is ever helping me play something.
Yeah. I think someone who spends more time than me on the alto trombone might have a different opinion.
Right.
But I got away with a lot of small bore trombone in orchestra in undergrad, and it was awesome. It was so much fun.
Yeah, and when I played Beethoven 5, I didn't have an alto or have access to one, and that's what I did. Just played a small bore, and it was,
crank it.
It was all those Fs, all those were just, they were what they were. That definitely would be a fun thing I bet there has to be a recording of that. Maybe even one that maybe there's a CD that's like scuffed up in the bottom of a drawer somewhere at my parents' house of that concert. But it would definitely be interesting to go back and hear if how many of those Fs I played correctly, because there are a lot of them in Beethoven 5. And I suspect that I did not get them all.
You might have got them all.
Or if I did get them all, I bet they were way too loud. That seems like the way I would have accomplished the task if it was accomplished.
Yes.
Because I think
Like, at what cost?
Right. Because I think that was like when I was maybe a junior in high school that I played that. But yeah, I think, contrabass and alto they're similar in kind of practicality and, it's a choice. They do sound different, generally speaking. I think that, to me, that's the point. And that's the same thing I say with the different keys of tubas. I can't tell you how many students it's like, well, that's an F tuba solo, or that's an F tuba excerpt, that's an F tuba piece, that's a C tuba piece. And it's like, there are conventions, there are common things that people do. But I think at the end of the day, if you need a specific instrument, if you can't do it on one, if you can only do it on one but not the other, it probably says more about you than the piece necessarily.
Right. I was having a conversation like this with trumpet players yesterday before a big band gigs. They're all smarter than me, and they all know how to do all that transposition stuff a lot better.
They don't all know how to do that.
Well, the cool ones do. The cool ones that I'm married to do. And
definitely, I guess what I would say is, if playing in a big band, I would not assume that all trumpet players are expert transposition.
Okay, yeah, I guess it's not a prerequisite to be in a big band to be up on your horn keys, transpositions.
Your contra alto in A transposition.
And just like, it's like you got your B flat trumpet in your hand, and your professor gives you a trumpet in D part, and they're like, go at it. Or they'll like take your etude and like change the key signature. All right, your trumpet's in Z. Go for it. That just amazes me.
Your trumpet is in Mi flat, like E flat.
Mi flat. That's funny. I've never heard that one.
No,
That's good.
But yeah, I mean, they're usually like, often at times it'll use solfege to talk about it. But yeah, I mean, that's definitely not something that I can do super, super well at sight. But it always is impressive, like the trumpet players that I, especially in more classical situations that I play with, they'll, especially like for like anything that's C or B flat, it's like it doesn't matter which instrument they have in which key it's written in. Like specifically those two, it's like irrelevant information for them. Mm-hmm. And other things, that's where things start to get a little bit different. And I think at the end of the day, no one is perfect. You can make somebody crumble with putting something really hard in front of them in an obscure transposition. There are ones that are more common than others. But even with trumpet, not that either of us profess to be trumpet players, but the same thing. I think that younger students might think at times that, oh, I need this trumpet for this piece because that's what it says. And I'm not saying that that's not what you should use, because there are some conventions and those sorts of things that it might make sense. But at the end of the day, changing instruments to me should be about sound change. A C trumpet and a B flat trumpet in general don't sound the same. And you might want that brilliance of a C trumpet. And so that's kind of how I try to approach it with tuba, and I guess with alto trombone. Although it's not, if I had a lot of need for alto trombone or a lot of need of contrabass trombone and owned one, that's probably how I would approach it as well. Is that it's more about, do you want this sound? Do you want to do I think that's more an important way to kind of approach those sorts of instrument changes. Mm-hmm. But there always is a practical side.
Yeah, sure.
Slide positions are different, or fingerings are different. And there's just no arguing kind of how you're, especially with fingerings. Certain fingering combinations going back and forth are more complicated than others. There's just no way around it. So certain times it makes more or less sense for that sort of perspective. And there is the reality, I talked about this in my brass methods class this week, that playing a higher pitched instrument doesn't necessarily make you play the higher notes easier, but it is a little bit more forgiving. I think that's the way to sometimes think about it, is that if you're off target, you might find the target a little bit easier.
Yeah.
But you also, the targets move then, when you change instruments. So
yeah, you got different targets.
So
they may be easier to hit, but they're in a different location than what you're used to.
Right. And ultimately, with any brass playing, if you're not hearing the pitch in your head and you're just, throwing darts with a blindfold on, even if you get the right note out, it's probably not going to sound the way it should sound.
Right.
So,
That's the long and the short of it.
but yeah, I commonly have some of my tuba students learn excerpts on the wrong tubas, because I think that can be helpful, and that's something I definitely push myself to do. I would say pretty much with some exceptions, but of the majority of the major excerpts, I could play them on either. Like, I've worked on them on either tuba. Would I, take an audition and only bring one tuba? Absolutely not. I would bring whatever tubas I needed that I had access to that would give me the best chance of success, not just something that I could do it on.
Right. And that's kind of like going back to the rhythm interpretation and choices that we were talking about in the Bordoni. It's like, just play it in like the most like industry standard flat, like do it in the way that it is expected to be played for, the ears that are going to be listening.
Yeah.
And if it's traditionally played on an F tuba, then go ahead and do that.
Yeah, tuba's a little bit of a complicated thing with that, because there's a lot of leeway in some of the middle excerpts. I think that there are plenty of excerpts where, at least in the United States, no one would want to play them on anything but C, and a lot of excerpts where no one would play anything but F, or in some cases E flat. But it's easier to say contrabass tuba and bass tuba, because C and B flat, there are people who people who only play one key of tuba, but in general, for those sorts of things, you're going to find people with a contrabass and a bass tuba, and the key is almost always C for contrabass in the United States, and it's mostly F, but there is enough of an E flat faction in the United States that it's worth at least mentioning. But there definitely are some other options, other instruments that, other excerpts where you might be able to go one way or another. Like Meistersinger is a perfect example. It's a pretty high tuba excerpt. It goes up to an E above the bass clef staff, which is pretty high for us. And in the United States, I would say it's fairly split of who plays it on what tuba. And I would say that the older convention in the United States is to play it on C tuba. And I would say some younger players tend to, and by younger in this context, I'm meaning, younger professionals, younger, people who have jobs, in some of these cases, are playing it on F. And I think both are valid. It goes up, and that's one that, let's say my valve broke on one tuba in the middle of an audition, or whatever. I would just switch to the other one. It shouldn't be that big of a deal for most people.
Interesting.
We've got some love from Brazil, which is awesome.
That's great. Hello.
And then, do I know who won the Austin audition? I do not.
No, I don't either.
Let's see if the internet can. I assume that you've tried probably the route that I would try. But let's see if the internet can tell us.
While Zach's looking that up on the internet, I meant to send this. I found an interesting website today that I think this is a little bit of a meta conversation talking about the stream within the stream. But I found this website called the Picker Wheel. Did you see the message that I sent you about the Picker Wheel, Zach?
What did you send it? You texted me?
I think I sent it to you on your phone. Yeah. It's I just sent it to you. I don't know why you would check it, but it was in the middle of the stream, and I thought about it, and I texted you. Anyways, Picker Wheel is like Wheel of Fortune, like the wheel that they spin, but it's a digital version. Yeah, it looks like that, and it has infinite variability. You can make your own thing. I figured that could be something we could use in the stream sometime for playing things on camera to add a fun chaos theory to it a little bit. Anyways, you probably have the data that you were looking for.
I don't have it. Just because I don't have it,
I see. Well, that's all right. Well, we'll know eventually. If Last Row hasn't updated yet, then they'll let us know eventually. But we shall see.
But But yeah, so especially those sorts of conventions of playing what instrument, it's definitely interesting. But then you also, another layer of that sort of thing too, just to kind of put a button on that, is sometimes it's specified what you're supposed to play on, and that's rarely on a tuba audition that it says what key of tuba you have to play. But there are circumstances where, like specifically with Beadlow, I've seen orchestras specify that you have to play it on a tuba, and that you cannot play it on a euphonium.
Really?
Which I don't know if they're allowing French C tubas. I don't, you can get into the weeds of what they might mean,
Abstraction.
So, but I would say that that's pretty rare. But I have seen that, and then I've also seen, on trombone auditions sometimes saying, this orchestra audition wants you to play this on alto, or sometimes you see alto preferred but not required. Just kind of depends.
Mm-hmm.
But again, that's not always the case necessarily.
Yeah.
But yeah, all those different things. At the end of the day, I think the other thing too that's important to mention with this is that you want, if you don't have an instrument and you think you can't do it, you might be able to do it. You should try it. And I wouldn't look to, especially if you can't afford that second instrument or something like that, I wouldn't say that that's the end of it, which is how I thought about it. Definitely before I got my F tuba, I was always thinking like, I can't play this piece because it's an F tuba piece, can't do this, can't do that. And I definitely got frustrated with that. And now I play some of those pieces on C tuba, or those excerpts on C tuba. And that's more how I would say it should be thought about, is that you should be trying to do it on those sorts of things. Do you have any comments about that, or maybe trombone related?
No, nothing trombone related. No comments. I just wanted to see if you wanted to respond to.
I know what you want. Go ahead and say it.
More like the awful Clyde. Oh, I love it. That's my favorite thing to say.
Yeah.
Anyways.
What's great is that you didn't even, before you even started talking, I clicked the comment so it would pop up on screen because I knew exactly what you wanted.
It's just a fun word to say.
I did use that in my methods class when we were talking about predecessors to the tuba, or to low brass instruments in general.
What Zach is referring to, an inside joke of something that should be outside here.
I got to be honest, I don't know that it's like, I don't know that it's that original.
It was very funny at the time, and it was the first time that I had ever heard it, so it was new to me. We were trying out instruments at BAC.
Yeah, but it was like at their other store, we went to the wrong place, essentially, is the story.
Oh, okay. I didn't know that. I had a great time, and everyone was super nice to me. I got to try all these different horns out, and we were talking about like weird horns, and we got onto the conversation of the awful Clyde, and the guy that was helping us out, that was answering all of our brass questions, just said, more like the awful Clyde, and we all laughed. It was really funny. And so now every time that I see the word, I say the joke.
Yes. But
I love it.
And I did use that joke in my methods class, and I got at least a couple laughs. It's 8 a.m. in the 8 a.m. in the morning is redundant. It was 8 a.m. and
8 a.m. in the morning. You can say that. It's 8 a.m. in the morning.
I think sometimes redundancy is okay.
Zing it home.
I know, one of my college roommates used to always hate when someone said something that was redundant. Saying ATM machine. I think at the end of the day, not that one necessarily, but sometimes it drives the point home. Like, naturally occurring in nature is one that I say sometimes, that it's like kind of borderline. It's like probably redundant.
Never even thought about that being redundant, but I guess that is.
But it is, isn't it?
It is. Is it not?
Yes. So, but I also think it, if I just said it's naturally occurring, it's like not. It's not a good statement.
I need more context.
It's naturally occurring in nature.
Occurring. People tell me the flavors in LaCroix are naturally occurring. I don't believe them. That needs more context.
Yeah, who knows where natural flavors come from? There's a lot of leeway in that. Not that this is why you came to this podcast.
I tried to make my own natural flavors one time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No follow.
What I was doing.
No follow-up information.
That's it.
Nothing helpful.
End of story. No, what was I doing? It was with oranges. Now, what did I do? Oh, I remember what I did. It was not correct. So I took oranges and I took like before I actually peeled them to eat them, I peeled with a vegetable peeler the orange outer skin away from the rind. So all I had was like the oily orange flesh of the outside.
Okay.
And I ground that up in a food processor with water to make a slurry, and then I strained it, and then I separated the water from some of the oily stuff, and then put that in my fizzy water, and it smelled and tasted like oranges. And I don't know if it was food safe, but that's my advice to maybe don't do that. It wasn't really, like we were talking about earlier.
Were they organic oranges?
No, they're just store-bought.
I think
oranges.
Well, you can get organic store-bought oranges. I know. I only asked that because I know with like making like apple cider vinegar and things like that, if they're not organic, you're supposed to peel them. Like you're not supposed to use the peel for that sort of stuff. I don't know if that would be similar or the same in this case.
I would posit that there's probably something on the outside of the orange that I'm not a fan of digesting, and the whole point of getting the orangey orangeness from the orange was to avoid just that very thing. So, egg on my face.
So that's all I got for you.
That's why this is low brass U, and this is not like nutrition U.
Right, but we are branching out, so
yeah,
we've already got that website. You know, just kidding. I do have lowbrassu.com, although I have not really done anything with it. It's just still an empty web page. I definitely have some what I believe to be good ideas for it, but those have to remain hidden for now. I know it's a terrible just cliffhanger of a website that I will do something with eventually, but I have no immediate. It's definitely not on my week's to-do list. I can tell you that much right now.
And that's okay.
My week's to-do. Although I will say I've gotten most of my week's to-do list things taken care of, which I'm proud of. It's like I got a lot of them done.
Do you do weekly to-do lists?
Oftentimes, sometimes it's daily. A lot of times, like one of the things that I had to do this week is I had to go to the post office. Was it really sensitive? I needed to send a check for an audition, which, I probably should have sent it earlier, but it was fine. I didn't have to pay for any like exorbitant, overnighting or anything. And then, the other thing was a present for my dad, which, I'll admit is late.
Uh-oh.
I won't dox my dad by giving his birth date out on the web, but suffice it to say, it is. What I'll say is it's this month, but it wasn't this week or last week. So, but he'll get his gift in due time. Hopefully, it'll be here. I think it's supposed to be there on Monday, and I assume he's not watching. He does often watch the streams. But I assume he hasn't chimed in yet, so I assume he's not watching.
Usually we'll get some comment, yeah.
But maybe he's going to find out that maybe it'll be a surprise, maybe it won't be a surprise. To be fair, he already knows what it is, so it's not really a surprise. But when it is, I suppose the surprise is that he knows when I got it, and he doesn't know why it's not there yet. I don't know why. Anytime I have to go to the post office, I think just is such like a rare part of my life. That's like the hardest thing for me to do.
I totally agree with you. I don't. The post office and all related chores, like if I'm not actively looking at something that I need to mail in my hand, like it ceases to exist. Like in my world, my narrative, there are no post office. There are no mail. There is nothing. It's just. I just go to this mysterious mailbox outside of my house every now and then when I remember, and I get mail. But as far as like when it goes, it's just like I have no concept of that. Unless I'm like, all right, it's time to do the mail. I don't know why. Some of my family members are like that. I have a cousin who sends me, and this is not just her to me to her as well, like birthday presents from like years ago. She's like, hey, this is from 2016. Here you go. Merry Christmas. I'm like, it's June 2021. Thank you.
That's always fun.
But it's nice because like everyone else in our family is very punctual and like everything shows up. Or like my grandma will like call me and be like, "All right, like like, let me know when that letter arrives, and it's like 5 weeks earlier or something like that. They're always like trying to like time like exactly when letters go places. I don't have that strength in my personality. Maybe I should work on that.
Yeah. I feel like on the same sort of line of that is, as things have become more digital, I've also gotten worse at depositing checks.
Yeah, that's a big part of it.
Because it's just like, but everything's direct deposit though. So when it's not, it's confusing. Which also, that, speaking of mail things, I did get your thank you note. I still haven't read it.
You haven't read my thank you note?
That's because Carmen put it on the fridge or something, and then she didn't tell me about it, and then she told me about it, and I haven't read it yet. So I'm going to read it though.
How dare you?
See, it's all mail related things. I'm sure it's very lovely. I'll read it as soon as we'll get off stream and I'll read it to you. How about that?
Wow, that is making me deeply uncomfortable, even just like
the idea of it.
Visualizing that.
But yeah. So, do we have any other closing brass related topics, music related topics? I feel like we've kind of drifted.
We drifted a little bit. I
feel like we should end slightly stronger than talking about me not reading thank you notes.
Let's end on a strong note. For the 6 of you that are watching,
7.
Yeah, wow. In your head, begin thinking about suggestions of what we put on the picker wheel, because I want to start a picker wheel for the stream that we spin at the end, and then whatever it is has to be manifested by.
So you have to give more context of what you're thinking, I think.
Excerpts, tunes, etudes.
Yes. I knew what you were thinking, but
low brass strength. It doesn't even have to be something that's been notated yet. Like anything that you can conceive that you think that either Zach or I could play on a low brass instrument, that is what we will take suggestions of, and we'll put it on the picker wheel.
So we're not going to do any of the trumpet related things that we had joked about before?
Oh, making us do it on trumpet?
Because we have talked about, since we're both, I would say we are both somewhat amateur trumpet players. Like I wouldn't say that that's, I would say that we're both comfortably into amateur. Well, yeah, I was not by any means trying to make it seem like we're professionals.
No, I totally understand. I think that like both of us would just like we would get a round of applause at an open mic where we brought a trumpet. Anything beyond that, I don't know. I think I might get personally I would get like a sympathetic yeah, nice going, like maybe a pat on the shoulder from someone who like really already thought well of me as a person.
Yeah.
Outside of my trumpet playing, but I would not pay money to hear me play the trumpet, especially right now. Very out of practice.
Yeah. At
one time though, like end of May this year, I was playing a couple of notes. Yeah,
I definitely. It's been a while, but my trumpet is still it's out. It's like stood up underneath a trombone, like that's on a stand.
Out. Yeah.
It's ready to go. Might be a little dusty. Not sure if the valves move right now. They probably do.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I think that could be fun to just like do something that we're definitely going to fail, like playing trumpet excerpts that are also transposing, and just like good luck.
Right. Let's just like see what it sounds like. Very good.
But DJ Rice asks if I can pull it up here. I know what he asked, but I'm trying to pull it up. There we go. Do you have any plans for guest interviews for this podcast? We've definitely talked about it. Part of me wonders if people would do it, or it's like maybe because the other thing, most of this sort of stuff is not live, and it's like maybe for a good reason, maybe not for good reason. I don't know. We've definitely talked about it, but I don't know that.
Maybe a lot of fun.
We don't have any official plans as of right now, but maybe we should.
Right. Maybe now is the time. There you go. That could be our first trumpet challenge.
Yeah. That's probably a better thing is just like play tunes or like play, solo, like someone picks a tune and we have to solo over it on trumpet. I think both of us will have a better chance of success improvising on the trumpet than anything else.
We should start there and
then eventually we'll just like do a whole like orchestral list and just read it down.
We'll have a list of excerpts that we'll have in the back pocket ready on trumpet.
One thing we could do sometime soon is take a list for an audition that I'm preparing for and use the picker wheel, or use the audience gets to decide what excerpts I play, and I just play down the whole list or something.
That would be great.
I don't know if people would be interested in that. I'm trying to think. The only thing that I have to be careful about that is issues of copyright. But I think on that list, there are 2 pieces that are under copyright. But that doesn't mean you can't get away with playing them necessarily if it's a small enough chunk, potentially. But Procopia 5 is still under copyright, as is Symphonic Metamorphosis, among other things. But on that list, I think that's the only 2. So maybe that's something we could do next month or something.
Definitely.
Once that audition is officially something I'm taking, assuming that is the case.
Is that an audition that you want to disclose the?
I mean, it's.
Or is that we're saving that on the back?
We'll save it. It's not like it's. If you try, you probably will figure it out. I'll put it that way.
Okay.
It's not like there's a ton of auditions happening right now, but.
I'll be honest with you. It's been a long time since I've looked at an audition list.
Yeah. There have been enough hints in this, including sending a check and all of those sorts of things. Like there's enough data to figure it out. But since I have not been, not just me and no one, the invitations have not come out yet. So talking about it seems a little bit, I don't know what's the way to say it, but because I might not get invited. I will admit that that's not a guarantee. I have been denied before.
Yeah.
So we'll see.
We all have.
But yeah, that might be a fun way to prepare for that audition, is just live see how well I know these excerpts.
That would be wild. That'd be a lot of fun. I applaud you for being willing to be that transparent with something like that. That's always hard to do, even when you're playing for friends and stuff like that.
But I think it's also good. I mean, is it going to be easier with an audience? Yeah, it's not going to be any easier in that scenario necessarily. And I will say that this list is, I don't know how to put it. There are some standard excerpts that are not there that I don't miss. So, nice. Not saying that I can play all these perfectly every single time, but some of the excerpts that I am not thrilled about being on there. There also are some that, someone is driving crazily outside. I do wish there were a few higher F-tuba excerpts that are missing. I will say that, because I generally do pretty well with those. But I guess what I'll say is Ride of the Valkyries is not on the list, and
nice.
I don't miss it. Nor is there any Mahler 5 or similar low, very fast thing that So.
You just reminded me of something.
What do you got?
I need tech support. Speaking of Ride of the Valkyrie, it made me think of that metronome that you told me to download.
Time Guru.
It's stuck like this.
I move it over towards the microphone.
I have all of these numbers, and I don't know how to delete all of them.
Swipe down on them. Swipe from and go down.
Oh my gosh. Wow. Well, there you go.
There you go.
Now I know. Egg on my face.
Well, I mean, to be fair, I don't think it explains it to you or anything.
I just I kept trying to make them go away, and it kept making more. And I just had all these beats, and I was like, stop.
Yeah, that would not be ideal. But yeah, have you been using that metronome?
No, because I made 18 beats. I haven't used it once. I didn't know how to fix it.
That is pretty funny. So yeah, now you know. Craig says ride not on a list. Yes, it is. So I guess I'll just go ahead and say it, because I feel like as long as I approach it in this way, I think it's fine, because I've sent in my resume. The check is in the mail. That's what they always say, right? But it's for the San Diego Symphony, which I hope to take the audition.
Nice.
Although it's not going to be easy to take that audition for a multitude of reasons. Just the distance, and I think I'm going to try to if I end up taking it.
So fly.
I think I'm going to fly. The problem is if I don't fly, I'll probably have to cancel more teaching things, which I don't want to do. I'd rather not, miss a bunch of my teaching stuff. That would not, I could probably, but I would not like to. So ideally I don't miss any teaching unless I advance, but the way that audition is scheduled, that may not be the case. So we'll see. And then there's just it will be fairly expensive to fly out there with 2 tubas. But since I don't have time it would be expensive. I mean, driving that far is also expensive.
Right.
In my perfect world, someone else from this area is also going, and I can send them with my F tuba, and I'll fly with my C tuba, which I have a flight case for, which would save some money.
That would help.
But we'll see. Just kind of is what it is. Taking tuba auditions, just taking it themselves is super inconvenient.
Yeah. It's just big instruments.
And I even have a flight case, and it's still an issue. Flying Southwest makes it not super expensive because the tuba is only $75 unless they've changed their prices. I guess I haven't done it in a while. But with the way Southwest does it, if it's oversized and or overweight, it's going to be one price, which is $75 last I did it. Whereas I've done it with American, where it was $100 for being oversized, another $100 for being overweight, another $100 for being in a second category of overweight, and the bag wasn't free, so it's another $25. So it's $325 each way to fly. I think it was American that I did one time. And I remember that was not a fun, I didn't know that showing up. And I just it's when you're just putting in your card, it's just I don't want to do this. But yeah, so I tend to fly Southwest when I'm flying with tubas. And then you can also, if I'm bringing 2, I'd buy a ticket for the second one, my F tuba, which is still not really ideal. And at least last when I looked at flights, they were not super cheap. So it was going to be a few $100 to fly that also. So we'll see. So there's a chance that it just won't work out with my teaching schedule. I think everything's flexible enough where I can make it work. But, it's just taking auditions is hard for a multitude of reasons, and tuba is by far the worst.
It's always tricky.
I guess maybe not by far. Harp, you're not flying with a harp, I don't think.
Right. Yeah, I can't imagine there's any way to really do it.
But that's not my problem. But yeah, taking a trombone audition, maybe you need your alto as well. I've never seen a bass trombone audition require contra. I guess it's not.
Centers do an audition before.
Yeah, well, that's true. Yeah, especially for military band stuff where you have to play military jazz stuff where you also have to play a march or something.
If I was a smart person, I would have used a double case or invested in a double case much earlier in that time.
But even that's tricky because a double case, you run the issue of it maybe not fitting.
That's the problem.
I have a double bag. I would never bring that on a plane, even though it probably would fit. If it didn't fit, it's my horns are destroyed.
Yeah, you're just in a bad place.
But even some of the Marcus Bona cases that are double cases, it's the double tenor one. It's it might fit, might, and probably would survive being underneath the plane if it had to be, but that wouldn't be the ideal starting point.
No.
2 trombones, generally speaking, is a bring both of them on and just smile a bunch, and do the best. Yeah, Craig says bass trombone auditions never require contra. Yeah, I've never seen it happen. I suppose nothing is impossible.
Right.
But yeah, I've definitely never heard of that existing. But they could, that's definitely a thing. That stuff could change over time. I would say contra in the United States is, I wouldn't say it's having a renaissance. I think that's making it a little bit bigger than it is, but feels like it's being used more often these days than it used to be. But maybe that's just being around things more and knowing about it happening more, but I don't know. And who's to say that, especially I've never taken an audition outside of this country, maybe in other countries, contra is something that they might require. I would assume that doesn't happen, but contra is used more often in certain places than other places. Well, cool. Should we call it there? And just a reminder that we'll be on Tuesday moving forward, ideally always, and not have any issues, but
Right.
But
Hopefully we'll stick to Tuesday.
Craig also says that you can stick the bone in the closet if you're nice enough. That's not on every plane, though. That's an important thing to know.
But it's good to always ask first.
Yeah, that's.
Coat closet.
I mean, the best thing that you could do, and this is probably with any, lots of things. If you're trying to do something that's not the easiest or not a perfect situation, do a lot of smiling. It's not going to hurt you.
Right.
Being nice to flight attendants, being nice to the staff there. It's, I always have a big smile on my face, and I also keep my trombone like parallel to my body where you can't really see it, and
Can't tell how big it actually is.
yeah, I try to just downplay it as much as possible.
Put it somewhere for me.
But cool. Well, we'll call it there, and we'll be on Tuesday next week. So same bat time, same bat channel, but not same, bat day.
That day.
There we go. Yeah, Craig's saying contra is a big thing in Europe. Some operas need some contra experience. Yeah, I mean, that makes sense. And even in the United States, like, I would say that there might be an expectation for you to play contra in certain professional orchestras and certain operas. Like, I don't know if the Met, when, Denson Paul Pollard won his job, if they made him play contra, but he plays contra. So there are certain jobs where you should be able to do it, and you need to be able to do it. Most orchestra stuff, it's not super relevant for most symphonic orchestras. But cool. So we'll call it there. I guess I forgot. Are you gonna play us out, Connor? Do you want to do that again?
Yeah, let me go grab a horn.
So Connor's gonna play us out, and then we're gonna also play the intro video that's relatively new if you haven't seen it. So it's something to think about. But yeah, contrabass trombone, at the end of the day, it's definitely not something, if you think you need to be worrying about it, you probably don't. Just play bass trombone for most things. But as a professional player in an orchestra, it might be relevant. For me personally, I would love to have a contrabass trombone. I've had to play it on a few occasions, but it's never been something that I really needed to own. And it really is only going to pay for yourself if you're in one of those positions. All right. So you wanna check that gain?
Yeah, let's turn.
I barely saw it, but I saw it. So Connor's gonna play us out on a little trumpet, I guess, and.
The trumpet challenge, right? Now it's the time.
So is this like, are you challenging me by playing that? Is that what you're? Don't play the melody if that's what you're gonna do.
I won't play the melody.
Please do not play anything that is copywritten.
All right.
All right. So I'll give you the floor.
All right. Play like the very last.